Welcome back to Kingdom Conversations with Tahir, the Gospel Engineer. I want to thank everyone for tuning in and checking out our very first episode. If you haven't seen it yet, it's available everywhere: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Deezer, Spot Chaser, and Podcast Addict. Yes. So that's 8 platforms now that allow you to engage in our conversations. So in the last episode, I talked about what the podcast is about, what we plan to accomplish. On this one, I figured I'd tell you a little bit about me so you can better understand my perspective. So I'm 45 years old. I live with my wife and 2 teenage sons in Chula Vista, California, uh, just about 20 minutes from San Diego, from downtown. My wife and I own and operate Elevate Administrative Services Incorporated. It is a billing and administrative services firm that provides services to medical and dental private practices. And so, in addition to that, I also work in law enforcement and with the Department of Homeland Security, which technically was never a dream of mine growing up, but it's where God has me now. And prior to that, I worked a few years in sales, and also worked for 10 years as an analyst for the Transit Authority in Los Angeles. So I was born and raised in Chicago. And since I was 8 years old, I was raised by my paternal grandmother on the south side of Chicago. To this day, of all the places I've lived and visited, Chicago is still my favorite place on the planet, with Florence, Italy being a very close second. Love Florence. It's magical. And so I'm a twin, for those of you who did not know, not identical. My brother, he still lives in Chicago area. I actually have 7 siblings. Two have passed on, 7 living siblings, I should say. Two have passed on. One brother died as an infant of what was probably SIDS. And then my middle sister, Melody, just passed away this last December. And so I was baptized at 9 years old, at the old historic Ebenezer Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago. And just before starting high school, I joined a citywide Christian youth organization called the Older Boys and Girls Conference, where I actually learned the foundational principles of the Bible, what it meant to be a Christian, and not just a person who goes to church. And so we would have camps and events that reinforce biblical values and righteousness and have tons of fun. I really learned what it meant to be a Christian and to have fun at the same time. And so I cemented some of those foundational friendships of my life in this organization. And it was so important to me that I actually made Shamika, my wife, attend a summer camp with that organization so that she could better understand me as a person. So school wise, I attended Irvin Charles Mollison Public School from second to eighth grade, and also was part of the District 14 gifted program there in Chicago that enhanced reading and presentation skills of young students. So in conjunction with that, as a sixth grader and again as an eighth grader, I won a citywide essay contest that was sponsored by British Airways. And with other winners, I traveled to London, England for an all expense paid trip for a week. Great experience for any young person. I attended the acclaimed Whitney M. Young Magnet High School, a very diverse and selective enrollment public school on the Chicago's West Side. It's where I first learned who I was apart from my twin brother. It was our first time not being together in school and helped us to find our people, our likes and dislikes. We found out that we were completely different people, and I was okay with that. Whitney Young High School is also the alma mater for our last First Lady, Michelle Obama. So it was one of our most famous alumni at this point. From there, I matriculated at Hampton University in Virginia, the real HU in Hampton Roads, and that's where I met my wife. At Hampton, I was away from home for the first time and relished in my new environment, truly made the most of my college experience. And I obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in finance. I was a resident assistant. I was in the marching band, the gospel choir, business club. I was active in our Student Christian Association and worked in our career planning and placement center. On top of that, I was also a DJ and an on air personality at the campus radio station, which we talked about in the last episode. And I believe that's where I first noticed my gift of encouragement and exhortation. But that's enough about me for this episode. So I'd like to move right ahead and introduce our guest or my guest for the day. So today I'm going to be speaking with Marlita Hill, someone who I've known for just over 15 years, one of the nicest, kindest, soft spoken powerhouses that I've ever encountered. So we met while attending and serving at a Full Harvest International Church in Los Angeles. And we've both been blessed to be able to work with young people and young adults in ministry. So I have so much respect and admiration for the gift of dance and the gift of encouragement that she carries so well. She's written at least 4 books on artistry and faith and the intersection of our gifting or your gifting and the kingdom. So she's also the creator of the Kingdom Arts Initiative that practices those principles that she writes about in all of her books. So I don't want to tell her whole story, but I'll let her tell you more. Please welcome Marlita Hill. Hi.
Tahir, how are you?
I'm doing great. I mean, I don't remember the last time we actually saw each other. It's probably been
It's
at least 10
been,
years
yes, it's been some years.
because I left LA um, to move to Chicago back in like 2009.
Mhm.
I may have seen you, but I don't even know when exactly you left LA.
Yeah.
Um, but so it's been a while, but
It's been
but
some
but
years.
we've been following each other on social media, of course,
Yeah.
and so we've just been missing each other. But I know you've been busy and I've been busy, but I'm glad that we've reconnected, and I look forward to catching up with you today. Um, so I'll start with this. I want to ask, why is it so important to you to speak to other artists?
Mm. Well, it is most important because it is the population that the Lord put on my heart. I
Okay.
mean, I this whole creative journey for me is God led. I
Okay.
was not interested in being an artist to hear. I wasn't. I wasn't even thinking about art.
Really?
No, I wanted to be a psychologist.
I did not
That,
know that.
yes, I wanted to be a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was, just really quickly, so at my church, well, there's this organization. You grew up with an organization. I grew up with an organization
Good.
too.
Good.
So there was this organization called the Boss Program, Building on Spiritual Substance, and they
Okay.
taught entrepreneurship based on biblical principles to youth.
Mm-hmm.
And they had different trainers who would be at churches. So my church had a trainer,
Mm-hmm.
and every holiday, so they own a resort up in the Idlewild
Really?
Mountains,
Okay.
in California. Beautiful couple, uh, Al and Hattie Hollingsworth.
Okay.
So they have a resort up there, and every holiday and other times of the year, they would have these events. And so
Mm.
I would go with my trainer and his wife up to these events.
Okay.
So one day I went and I was 15. And I remember I was standing and I was volunteering, and I heard this voice say, oh, first of all, they announced this dance ministry over the speaker. Now,
Oh.
I had never heard of dance ministry before. I mean, we used to do cheers in church and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. I had never heard of dance ministry before.
Gotcha.
And my family would take us to all kind of cultural events. So I knew about dance, I knew about the arts, but it was cool because I was with my family. It wasn't
Yeah.
something that I was like, oh, I want to go see.
Yeah.
So I was there this day. They announced this group over the loudspeaker and I ignored it. But this voice said, go watch.
Okay.
And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who it was. I just know it was very clear. And that's the first time I ever remember hearing God speak to me.
Okay.
That was the first time. And so I was like, I'm not interested. And it said it again, go watch. And then it said it again after a few minutes. And I figured I better go watch because this thing is not going to leave me alone.
Yeah.
So I went and I plopped in the chair and I had an attitude because I didn't want to go watch. I didn't even know why I was sitting there
Hmm.
because I didn't even know what was talking to me. And then the Hush Company, they began to minister. And it was like an elephant sat
Wow.
on my chest
Really?
and just tears were pouring down my face. And one of the trainers, she saw God dealing with me and she asked me if I wanted to meet them. And I said yes. And so I went up, I prayed with them, and then I was at rehearsal on Tuesday.
Really? Wow. Now,
And
prior to that, had you danced before? No.
I mean, with my family,
Yeah.
with my family, I, did some things, but no, when I say not on my radar, not on my radar.
That's incredible.
Yes. And so I started ministering with them the next Tuesday, and then that completely shifted the trajectory of my life. And I
Wow.
haven't looked back since.
So you grew up in California?
Yes, born and raised.
Okay.
Hmm.
So what did you, so once you got the call or once you got that prodding,
Yeah.
um, what did you, I guess, what did you think that was going to lead to? Or did you think it was going to lead to a future career in dance or in ministry?
When I first started, I didn't think about anything beyond the moment. I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I was young. I didn't know about purpose yet. Um, I knew that God would talk to me, but I thought he would like start talking to me in my 30s when I was like for real grown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I didn't know anything about that. And so I learned about purpose and destiny. That's how I ended up at Harvest,
Hmm.
is because we all actually, excuse me, we all transitioned to
Right.
Harvest together.
Hmm.
Um, and so, no, I had no idea what that would lead to.
Yeah. So what was that like being a novice to the art form and also taking on the spiritual component at the same time? Like, were there hardships? How was that learning curve? How did you endure that?
So, within the Hush Company, it was incredible.
Good.
It was like I found a part of myself I didn't even know existed, I didn't even know I wanted. The hardship was outside of the Hush Company. My family had a lot of difficulty with the amount of time. They didn't really understand. Um, and as I got older, because I ministered with them for 8 years,
Okay.
right? So I went on into my 20s. And in that, the Lord told me to go to school for dance. So it was the Lord who led me to go to
Mm,
school for dance. It was the Lord who led me to start a company. All this creative journey, Kai, everything, that was
yeah.
totally Him.
Okay.
But back then, they thought it was just something that I was doing and I needed to get serious. And like the Lord had told me to go to school for dance, but I didn't know you had to know how to dance to get into college for dance. So it took me years to
Okay.
get into a school. And pursuing your dream and not making it might be cute at 18, 19, but when you're hitting 23, 24, 25,
Yeah.
26, people have a lot to say about that.
Of course.
I didn't finally make it into a dance program until I was 27.
Oh, wow.
And I had, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And I went straight from high school to college. And then I went to college for 2 years at a junior college. Then I got accepted into Cal State Long Beach straight out of that, but I couldn't get into the dance program.
Wow.
And I knew God had told me to go to school for dance. So I knew that's what I had to do. My family was like, you have so many other things you can do. This is irresponsible. My mom wanted me to get a job with the city.
Oh, wow.
Everybody had an opinion about what I should do. And they really felt like I was wasting my life. And they were very vocal
Hmm.
about that. And that was very painful because I knew what God had told me. And he had to tell me, he had to teach me later I told you what I was going to do with your life. I didn't tell them, right? So they don't know, and you need to forgive them because in their mind they're trying to protect you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was something, and he healed a lot of my family relationships as I continued and as they started to see my obedience bear fruit,
Okay.
right? So later they started to see, oh, wow. In fact, my mother, years later, she came to me one day and she said, Marlita, just out of the blue, it shocked me so much. But we were talking and she was like, I'm so glad you never listened to me.
Wow.
And she said, would you forgive me? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because you know how Saul, before he became Paul, he used to travel and assault the Christians. That was my mom. That was my mother. She
Right.
was my, so I was like, woman, what is the
Wow.
problem? So yeah, God healed that relationship. And now she is, she told me, she said, you have taught me about faith.
Yeah.
Crazy. So yes, crazy, crazy.
So I guess the fact that you couldn't get into those programs or weren't accepted into those programs, what do you think was the main factor? Was it they didn't think your skill level was right? Was like racism or discrimination a part of those decisions? Or like, I guess, how did you see it at the time?
I saw it as they did not see my potential.
Okay.
I knew I didn't look the part, but I thought they would see my potential. I
Hmm.
mean, by this time, I was, in many accounts, a professional. I was traveling the country,
Yeah.
getting paid to
Yeah.
dance.
Hmm.
And now being in the academic dance world, I understand, and I say this with all the respect, but it's true,
Yeah.
how myopic that world is. It
Yeah.
is very Western dance focused, which, okay, it is what it is, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because, and this is something that I talk about at the college, at the university that I'm at now. I'm like,
Mhm.
you need to be careful who you turn away because I was the one that they turned away. And look at how much I've contributed to the dance field. In
Yeah.
fact, you asked me to come here because of what I've contributed
Yeah.
to the dance field. And yet I didn't look the part,
Yeah.
right? So um, in the arts, especially in dance, and especially when you get into commercial dance, it is a lot about what you look like.
I
Do
believe it.
you, right? I was thinking about Juilliard one day, not saying anything against Juilliard, but once I went through that process, it made me start to think of things. And the one thing that I realized is when you get to these upper tier institutions, they did not produce those dancers, those artists. In fact, you can't even get into those institutions until you're at that level,
Gotcha.
right? So it makes you think a lot about a lot of different things. But in that I didn't even think I could dance anymore by the time
Hmm.
the 8 years rolled around. And I just heard no after no after no after no after no.
Yeah.
And I've tried to give up several times. I was trying to give up. I swear to God, I was trying to give up.
What was that like?
It was lonely. It was because there wasn't really anybody I could talk to because my family wanted me to do that. And I tried to, and yet God would keep filling me with vision and giving me the next direction. And do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and so I would try again and then get dejected and then spend some time curled up on the bed. And then he'd fill me again. And I'd try, it was just, I was
Yeah.
all over the place. I was a hot mess.
Well, that kind of leads me to I guess a question about vulnerability.
Mm,
So, for I think people know. Most of my friends and followers know that I'm also an artist. I'm a singer, songwriter, and I play an instrument, play trumpet. Not professionally, but but I guess, when do you feel most vulnerable as an artist?
Uh, uh, right when I put my stuff out into the world.
Okay, so that initial release is when you feel the jitters and
That,
the
yes,
anxiety.
that is, I mean, because validation was such a huge need for me for a long time, because the Lord kept sending me into spaces where, in all accounts, I was at the bottom,
Hmm.
right? I always had this potential. I always had this. I knew exactly where I was going,
Yeah,
but He kept putting me in spaces where, like when I got into school, it was obvious
yeah.
I was behind everybody else. Like it was totally obvious. So that has, it was vulnerable to go into those spaces,
Hmm.
knowing that I was behind everybody, that they knew, that they were looking at me thinking, what you doing here?
Hmm. Yeah,
Right? And then you take that, and then I take a risk to go, just hold on, let me show you
yeah.
what I can do, and what God has given me, what's in me. But that's risky because you don't know if it's going to be accepted.
So
I
where
mean,
did
oh, go ahead.
where did the boldness come from, though? Because I've always seen you as, just this sure person who's sure of herself, bold
You,
in what you're doing. Maybe I saw you after the transition or after all of that, or
no, what you saw is hilarious to me because that's not how I felt.
really.
No, I think right now is finally the time where I'm like, this is who I am, and I'm okay. But that is something that is newly found. What I haven't been confident is if people would value it, if people would accept it, if people would take the time to see beyond the fact that right now what I look like
Right.
doesn't impress you. I'm not sexy on paper. I'm still not technically sexy on paper. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But that's because I have built that,
Okay.
right? But that's taken 20 years to build, to get to the point where people go, oh, but
Wow.
this has been in me all the time. I just didn't look like it,
Yeah.
right?
I can see that. I can understand that. Um, okay. So, in light of everything that's going on for the last few months,
Mm-hmm.
with the virus, with the protests, with and then now the second wave, if you will, how does the artist deal with chaos around them? What's your process of getting through? How do you express your frustration, or how do you push through all the distraction around you to still get out the art form?
So I think, and I would be interested to hear how you, as an artist,
Hmm.
right, navigate this chaos. But from my end, we as artists, we operate in two dimensions. So, first of all, there's how we process what's going on, how we feel about that. And then there's how we create space for others to
Hmm.
process. And so for us personally, and in that, I think that the kind of vehicles or processes that are available are the same for both of us,
Okay.
whether it's us individually processing or us providing space. And sometimes that is to provide a space to process. Sometimes that is for us to provide a space or have a space to converse, or to have a catharsis,
Mm-hmm.
or to hold up a mirror to society, to ourselves. Um, there are many ways to mourn, to grieve, to be happy, to flip on its head, to deconstruct.
Hmm.
There are all kinds of ways that we uniquely as artists have to run into and away from the crazy and
Yeah.
just catch our breath.
Hmm.
and to also provide space for other people to do that as well,
Yeah.
or to confront them, right?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people turn this into productivity in terms of putting out and being inspired to write new music and to put new content out. Um, I haven't really been inspired to write anything in this
Yeah,
period. However, I feel like I'm doing more of an internal processing of everything. And my outlet, if you will, believe it or not, has been karaoke.
I love it.
And
I love
so
mine is salsa.
and so I've been doing a lot of karaoke at home,
Yeah,
uh, at work even.
yeah,
And so just opening myself up to that platform just to be able to get something out,
yeah,
because we and then of course Sunday while we're live streaming our services on YouTube or whatever, you get to sing, you get to express your appreciation, your love for God through that art, through that form as well.
right.
It's different though, since we can't gather together, and a lot of, I think, the strength in what we do was kind of feeling the energy around us. And
Yeah,
artists need that. They need
yes.
that instant feedback
Mm-hmm.
to really be able to kind of almost like a trampoline to jump off, and to the
Right.
more feedback you get, the higher you can go on the trampoline. And so I've noticed that I've been doing a lot more karaoke. And so I do hope to get back to writing
Yeah,
soon. And I've had a few thoughts here and there, but just know I haven't been bombarded with ideas. One thing I have thought about
mm-hmm.
is writing a new national anthem, and so that's something I've been toying around with, contemplating, and kind of brainstorming, like what
Yeah,
would that entail, and how can it be all encompassing and truthful at the same time.
I
So
love that.
yeah.
And so I think it's so interesting because you are in music, and yet all of these things are not driving you to create music, but they are driving you to engage in it.
Yes.
I am in dance. In the same way, this is not driving me to go create dance, but it does make me want to engage in it,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
so how we interact as artists in our art form is very different. Some of us, it drives us, like I said, to comment on this
Yeah.
because you want to go write something because you want to comment or process or converse with it, or like I said, confront it, or those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just want to get away.
You do. You do have to get away from it
You
all.
do.
Once you, because to me, anytime you're bombarded or inundated with a single thing, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's not healthy for you. It's not healthy for other people, because they see how you get jaded, and they see how
Yeah.
your frustration starts to come out. And so one of the things I've done in this whole series, or these last few months, is really try to engage people in more critical thinking and extra and intellectual conversation about what it is that we're experiencing,
Mhm.
provide some perspective to my non-Black friends about the experience that we've had, the knowledge that we carry that wasn't given to us in a book,
Yeah.
but that information that was passed down from other generations, and then from other areas where we've gotten information, like about the Tulsa race riots and the systemic problems with racism with regards to our prison and criminal justice system, even recommending, if you will, like podcasts or documentaries for people to engage with, just to get more information and to inform themselves, more so that they can be more informed as they jump on the I hate to say bandwagon, but that's kind of what it is. Jump on this whole Black Lives Matter bandwagon and say, "Hey, we're for the cause, we're allies in this," but you need to have more of an understanding of what you're aligning yourself to,
Right.
because it's deeper than than just George Floyd. It's deeper than, the Breonna Taylor and the people that have been impacted by it recently, because this goes back hundreds of years, all the way back to slavery.
Right. It
I
goes
mean,
back to the beginning. It was
yeah,
what this country was literally founded.
yes. And so I found myself and receiving an extraordinary amount of grace to really engage, because
Same here.
it hasn't come without blowback. It hasn't come without strife. It hasn't come without people still trying to divide in those spaces that I'm sharing. But it's 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 necessary for some of us to put ourselves out there. And I happen to be one of the ones gifted with the ability to intellectually have those conversations
Right.
and hold people accountable to what they're saying and educate them at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting, but I've been enjoying it. But like you said, I at some time you have to shut it down. You have to
Yeah,
retreat
sometimes you do.
and feed your own spirit. So
It was interesting because this conversation has been on my heart for some years. And I said, Lord, I don't even know what it would look like to go into that, but if you open the door, I certainly will. So when this all started going, I was laying in the bed one day and first of all, I hate Facebook Lives because I'm nervous about what if I say something that I can't take back.
yeah.
The wrong, right?
Hmm.
I'm very cautious about what I say.
Hmm.
And so, but I felt like I needed to get up. And so I made like 6 or 7 videos
Yes.
to my white friends.
Hmm.
And I said, I know your heart. And I know that you desire to be a part of healing conversation. So let me give you some things to think about.
Wow.
And then, so I made several videos about that. And then I stopped
Hmm.
because I had nothing else to say. I mean, granted, I have a whole lot more to say,
Right.
but in that sense,
Yes.
um, that was all I felt led to say on that platform.
Hmm.
So I totally understand. Sometimes you need to say something.
And then even beyond what I've done exactly what you did in
Yeah.
the sense of, but I wrote down all of these, I don't know how to put it, like monologues, if you will. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
monologue or just a divestiture of information and perspective on a number of topics. And so it's probably like
Hmm.
6 or 7 of them that I've written down. And I said, and I've even gone back and forth in my mind whether or not to do a video like you did, or just to write it as, as just a written word
Hmm.
and put it out like that. And I guess what's happened is conversations will come up that
Yeah.
I'll be able to pull on those writings, and
Hmm.
I'll have a response to what someone's saying, already crafted, already refined, considering, not trying to offend anyone, but wanting them to be corrected in their thinking if it's not, on par
If it's
with.
not correct,
Yeah.
right.
And
I
so,
remember at the end, I said, and in several of the videos, I said, I volunteer.
yes.
If you are, because I've had friends come to me and say, Marlita, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want
Yes.
people to think I'm a racist. I said, so come say your stupid stuff to me.
Yeah.
I volunteer. I
Yeah.
said, but I'm going to treat you like family. So if it's wrong, I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to give you some things to think about, but you can
Yeah.
absolutely come and talk to me.
And it's a beautiful thing. I've had a number of people. I've had a few pastors.
Take you up on it.
I've had
Same
coworkers,
here.
friends that will reach out to me and say, "Hey, I would like to get your thoughts on this. I want to post this, but I don't want to be offensive. So,
Yeah.
or I don't want to look like I'm trying to do too much, or
Yeah.
overstep my boundaries." And so, and I've appreciated that so much,
Yeah.
that they're at least thinking, okay, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I want to say something.
Right.
And so I can appreciate that. And I've, I've encouraged it, and I think most of the information and the content that they've brought to me has been on par and on point, and I haven't really had to do much correction because I mean, I think the people that I connect with on a spiritual and intellectual level,
Yeah.
um, I think I think I've already vetted them in my mind and in my heart, to know that they're good people in general.
Right. They are.
Um,
But they just
yeah,
don't know.
yeah,
There are two, because much like you, I had people who took me up on it, and we had great conversations and stuff like that. And two that were kind of stick out to me. One woman afterwards, she said, Marlita, I have no Black friends.
wow,
But as she said, but I feel silly going to just go try to find some Black friends. And I so, so I told her, I said, don't think of it like that.
yeah,
I said, go put yourself in spaces where Black people are.
yeah,
And what will happen is you will find that there are natural connections that you
hmm,
have. I like ice cream, you like ice cream.
yes,
I shop at Marshall's, you shop at Marshall's.
hmm,
I said, you know why I have white friends? Because I put myself in spaces where white people are. You know
exactly,
why I have Spanish friends? Because I took my butt to Spain.
yes,
I went and put myself in places where these people are. So you don't have to go find them. Just get out of your bubble.
yeah,
If you look around and you realize everybody looks like you,
yeah,
then go into some new spaces. And that leads me to the other one that was interesting is one guy, he said, I really feel like I need to listen right now. And so can you give us any insight on listening? And I was like, well, what are you listening to?
yeah,
Again, are you around any people who are not like you? Because if you're not, then you can't listen.
yeah,
If you're not in proximity, you can't just, reading books is good,
hmm,
but reading books is only going to take you so far.
yeah.
You need to be in proximity with human beings
This is true.
who are different than you. And then you will naturally be able to listen.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said books because I want to talk about your books.
Ding, 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 ding.
So you have the Kingdom Art Life. That was your first one, right?
No, the Kingdom Art Life is the one I just
Oh,
put
that's
out.
the newest one.
That's the newest one.
Okay, what was the first one?
The very first one was Dancers Assume the Position.
Oh, cool. And I love that topic. The title, the artwork on it is beautiful. Please go to her website, marlitahill.com, and see these books, get the books. And I'll be getting the new one, the Kingdom Art Life one, pretty soon.
Yay.
Uh, but so you went this, from being this rejected, student at all of these schools to finally finding your space and your footing, and now you're writing books. So how did that transition come about? What made you feel like you had something to say?
That same voice that said, go watch,
Yeah,
it was the same voice that said, go watch. So, again, never thought that I would write books. I always liked writing as a kid, but that's just what I did for fun. It's like somebody who just doodles,
yeah,
right? It's just, I like words, I like language, but it was just something that I did for fun. So I had no intention on ever writing a book. So when I started dancing with the Hush Company and started traveling with them, I started noticing that what I experienced literally on that mountain was happening to other people. And I was like, what is going on? And again, I'm still learning. And so I felt prompted to ask a question. And so I asked it. And I say it was like a question of destiny. All of a sudden, I just was flooded with this information And it got to the point where it was so much I couldn't write fast enough. And it
Hmm.
was a period of a couple of years where I just was dictating all this stuff that I was hearing that I had never heard before.
Wow.
And so uh, the Lord answered my question. All right. All I said was, "What is this?" That's all I asked was, "What is this?" And he answered me for like 3 years.
Hmm.
And then he said, "Put it in a book."
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And so I did. I mean, this voice had never led me astray thus far.
Hmm.
So I had the audacity to do it. And
Good.
so I did. And the first one was published. I was in Baltimore at the time getting my BFA,
Okay.
and I published it just as I graduated and moved back to California. One of the art teachers at the school, I remember, I can picture us sitting on the couch. He made my cover,
Oh,
the very
really?
the very first one, which was just like an abstracted picture of me. And yeah, and then I published this little book, and then later I did a second edition.
Okay.
Then I graduated, came back to California, got an opportunity to build a dance program in the Performing Arts High School in downtown Los Angeles from the ground up.
Okay.
The Lord said, start moving into your own career. So I started choreographing.
Good.
That was starting to take off. Then the Lord said, okay, now I want you to write about this experience, about being a Christian working outside of the church. Because the
Nice.
first book was specifically how we as dancers function inside the church.
Okay.
This one was how I, as a Christian artist, a Christian dancer specifically, function outside of the church.
Hmm.
Then left the school 7 years later in 2016. The Lord started bringing, actually in 2015, the Lord started bringing this language up again that he first talked to me in 2001 about. It
Okay.
was about 6 months. So it was nothing but dance for years. And then in 2001, for a period of about 6 months, I started hearing this language about marketplace and artists and career and kingdom. And so I just wrote it down, and then it stopped.
Yeah.
And so I put it away. I still have literally the original notebook I wrote it in with the date, to thing with it. And in 2015, he started bubbling up that language again, which is where the Kingdom Artists Initiative came from. And then in 2016, I wrote Defying Discord,
Yeah.
which, ending the divide between your faith and art career. And then in 2019, actually, the Lord had started leading me to write about entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And so in 2019, I wrote a book called Nail That Niche, which is about nailing your niche,
Okay.
and have other books that are in the works and
Nice.
courses. So like now I write multiple at a time.
Hmm.
They're just, and then I just finished releasing The Kingdom Art Life, which
Good.
I've been working on for a year.
Good.
So
So, what is the study course that goes along with that? What is that about?
So this is something that I'm super excited about. I've been wanting to do a Bible study, and I have multiple that I want to do, but I wanted to start making Bible studies for artists and resources, because particularly for this group of artists in the church,
Hmm.
there's not a lot of conversation or resources for us.
I can believe that.
Specifically in the Kingdom Artists Initiative, I speak to artists who are Christian, who are building careers in secular culture, and
Right.
specifically who do not make art about faith,
Gotcha.
right? So all that, there's not a lot of things for us.
Hmm.
So I wanted to make a Bible study for years. I didn't know what it was going to be. Um, Last summer, we were at a teachers meeting preparing for the coming school year, and on the paper there was a question that said that we were going to talk about in the meeting. And the question was, how do we spiritually equip dancers for a career in the arts?
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's my question. That is my question. And so I took that, I brainstormed, I did the Marlita and God thing,
Hmm.
and then that transformed to how do we help artists cultivate a relationship deepening, spirit led, fruit producing, faith maturing, honorably minded, God honoring, and so on and on
Yeah, yeah,
art, right, in secular culture. And so that was my question, because all of my books start with a question, right? All of them have a question.
good.
So that was my question. So I asked the chair of my department if she would supervise me in creating this, and she
Hmm.
goes, how long do you want this to be? And I was like, and I counted those, and I said, well, I have 12. She was like, in a semester. I said, apparently so. That thing kicked my butt.
Yeah.
But essentially, it's about this. I lovingly call myself a relationship coach
Okay.
because my work, I deal in two relationships.
Okay.
One, the relationship between the artist and God,
Yeah.
and two, the relationship between the artist's faith, art, and career.
Yes.
And in those two relationships, the Lord showed me, and I came to see as well, that you can't deal with those relationships without first dealing with how you see yourself as an
Hmm.
artist in God,
Yeah.
how you see God toward you
Yeah.
as an artist, and how you see God toward your art career, and specifically your kind of
Yeah.
art career,
Yeah.
right?
I notice a lot of your content deals with identity in that
Very
same
much so.
sense. Yeah.
Very much so. Because this is relationship work, right? And you can't have a good relationship without dealing with identity and
Yes.
the way you see yourself, right? Because um, the way we see ourselves and the way we see God toward us will affect the kind of relationship we are willing to have, we think is possible.
Yeah.
If I think that God is not for my art career, then I won't let him in that space and I won't take it to him.
Yeah.
It's just like if there's something that you know your mother doesn't like, it's not that you don't do it, you just don't take it around her.
Right. You don't let her
You don't,
see.
you don't let her see it, you don't talk to her about it, you don't do it around her, right? And so there is a part of yourself that you are not letting your mother into,
Okay.
right? So it's the same thing with God. If we think as artists that God is not for that part of us, then we cut it off,
Hmm.
right? So then
Yeah.
we have to deal with how we see those relationship dynamics.
That's really good. That's really good. I mean, I don't think I've ever considered it in that in the way you framed it, but
Hmm.
I do recognize that there's a really severe issue with people and not understanding who they are fundamentally, and then even even to the point where it's really more of they don't they don't understand who they are in relationship to God and
Hmm.
how the power that comes from that relationship is able to project us and gives us the courage, gives us the understanding. Having that relationship with God gives you the faith to push through, and without understanding that identity, it's really self-sacrificing.
It is, and unnecessarily so.
Yeah. So,
Un- so I remember when Bishop McClendon years ago. I remember when he was teaching he was teaching from Genesis 3.
I think I know where you're
And
going.
yes, right? And when he pulled out the conversation that God had with Adam, when he asked him, who told you that?
Hmm.
Right? And the Lord brought that up for me again in this study, and help me see it from an artist perspective. So we have these perceptions of ourselves,
Yeah.
right, in these relationships.
Hmm.
And it's like, from God's perspective, he's saying, who told you that?
Yeah.
I didn't tell you that I had a problem with you as an artist or with your art career. In fact, I'm the one who led you there. You know why you have that creative gift? Because I
Hmm.
gave it to you.
Yeah.
You know why every time you pray, Lord, use my art life, you hear
Wow.
R&B songs? Is
Hmm.
because I'm the one giving them to you.
Yeah.
I led you into secular culture. I opened those doors for you. But if we have nobody telling us,
Hmm.
that God would actually speak to us like that,
Yeah.
then we have an embattled relationship, right? I was fortunate because that's all I've ever known.
Yeah.
I've never known God, or should I say, I've never known my creative life apart from Him.
Without him. Yeah.
Every single part of my creative life was initiated by Him,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was in church, out of church, no matter what I made art about. There's one part in Defying Discord where I talk about our relationship with God through 4 different relationships.
Okay.
So one is a marriage that breaks up. Another one is 2 coworkers flirting at work. Another one is 2 friends, or a person with 2 different kinds of friends. But the last one is a one night stand.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. The Lord.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in Spain writing it, and I remember when He gave me this as a metaphor, and I was like, are you sure this is how you want me to talk about this? And He was like, yes, I do.
Okay.
Okay. But when you actually read it, it completely makes sense,
Yeah. There's so much validity to each perspective.
right? It totally makes sense. And I taught it. Um, I did an 8-week workshop at Saddleback Church in Orange County.
Yeah. I love Rick Warren's church.
Yeah, right. And so I did an 8-week Chi workshop,
Oh, great.
and we we went through those 4 relationships. And when we got to the one night stand one, it was fantastic conversation. It
Yeah.
was, and it totally, seeing it and seeing how we processed through that. Um, that was one of their favorites.
Good. I wonder why. No.
All I say is 2 people met at a party, things happened.
Yeah.
The next morning, right?
You got to deal with it.
Yeah, that's all I say. And so I liken
Mm-hmm.
our relationship with God to what this woman asked this guy the next day. They don't know each other. They had this encounter.
Yeah.
The next morning, she looks at him and she says, so how do you want to handle our finances? And he looks, right? And so I talk about the fact that this event happened between them.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know each other the night before. This event happens between them. They still don't know each other. But because this act happened between them, she looks at him and says, how do you want to handle our finances? And he's looking at her like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah.
There's a reason both of them are reacting that way. And in the same way, we interact with God that way sometimes. This event happened, and then God says, so let's start dealing with parts of your life. And you're like, I don't know you like that.
Right.
Sometimes that's how we interact with God, just like in this situation. And so, yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. I love that perspective. So all of your books are available, right? For purchase?
For purchase. Mm-hmm.
MarlitaHill.com.
MarlitaHill.com. And you can find me on Instagram at I am Marlita Hill.
Yes. What's the next evolution of Marlita Hill?
I don't even know, Tahir. Listen, okay. Here's what I know will happen. I don't know when, I don't know where,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I know what.
Okay.
It is, I know that I will be teaching this material. I know that I will continue creating more material, because apparently that's what I do
Yeah.
now. It's not what I did, it's actually what I do.
Yes.
I know that I will continue ministering to the hearts of artists and encouraging them in this assignment that God has given me. I know that that will look like me working with arts communities, with colleges specifically, and with churches. And then I'm going to be choreographing, setting work, a freelance choreographer. If I can do 1 to 3 works a year, that's perfect for me.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. My sons have taken a great liking to musical theater, and so a lot of their works and a lot of their shows incorporate a lot of dance into it as well. Have you considered doing anything in that that realm in terms of like Broadway, or is that even in the, I guess, the realm of possibilities?
It is definitely in the realm of possibilities. If they liked my work and thought that that I would be good for it, would be honest to say I would be petrified because I've never done it and it's very specific.
Yeah.
Although the dance supports the storytelling, and so I would pull specifically on my dance ministry experience because
Yes.
that's what I did there. So yeah, I would just have to learn what that looks like within a plot
Yeah.
to move the plot along. But I totally would be open to it.
That's awesome.
How
Well,
about you? What's
how
what what's
how about me?
within the near future for you?
Um, I really feel like this podcast is going to be a springboard into
It will be.
other things. Um, excuse me. Right now, I'm enjoying doing the one-on-one interactions. I think the next iteration of the podcast is going to be more topical and incorporating multiple perspectives from different areas, so different
Mhm.
regions of the country, because people in California tend to look at topics and issues a little different than people in Virginia.
This is true.
And then in Texas, and then Chicago, and so I'd like to call on friends all over the country to kind of lend perspective to different topics. And so I think
I love it.
toward the end of the year we'll get into some of that. I'd love to. I've actually been kind of jotting down notes as they come to me for a book eventually, and I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about. It's probably more relationship driven. Shamika and I, of course, just celebrated our 20th anniversary, so
It's fantastic.
so there's a lot to share about marriage and relationships and parenthood and all of that stuff. Um, and not that I consider myself an expert on it, but at the same time, we're still together. The
You are an
kids are
expert
still
of your,
alive.
yeah. And you're an expert of your
Of my
experience,
experience,
right? Of your
exactly.
experience.
And
When you're ready to start outlining it, hit me up. I'll help.
yes, we'll do. Thank you.
I'm serious.
I'm going to take you up on that. And so I believe that my experiences may benefit someone else, and that's really the only reason I do it. It's not, I don't need anything to say, oh look, I wrote this or I did this. It's really, how can I help somebody else endure or overcome? And so with that being the goal, then that's something that I definitely would like to do. Ultimately, I do want to get back into radio broadcasting. I do want to own and operate Christian stations,
Period.
promote Christian music. Well, put it this way, I want to promote kingdom music.
I
because
understand the difference.
my the vision that I have is to have music that everyone can listen to at any time. Right now, when you think about gospel music or Christian music, you think about contemporary Christian on one hand, you think about traditional gospel on the other hand, and there's really no one that's doing both at the same time.
Mm-mm.
And why is that?
Very It's. I wonder that too, and that's a whole other conversation we could have.
Yeah,
A whole other conversation.
because our beliefs, our theology, our doctrine, our music is not monolithic, and so
No, it's not.
I never understood why certain stations only put out a certain type of music when we're all reaching to the same God.
Right.
And
Right,
so
which is very different from a secular radio station because I could understand if you are genre specific,
yeah.
like, you have Power 106, you have K Rock, which is, alternative music, heavy metal music,
Yeah.
those kinds of things. You have The Wave, which is jazz. I
Right.
understand genre specific, but I love how you just put it.
Hmm.
When it's about the kingdom,
Yes,
I think there should be, I agree.
we all
Well,
should be together.
yours is going to be the first one.
Hey, let it let it be. I thank you so much for your candor for just your wisdom and your experiences. Thank you for being obedient to the Holy Spirit and
Mhm.
doing the things that you've done and the things that you've accomplished. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a part of Kingdom Conversations with Tahir, the Gospel Engineer. Um, any last words for the people?
These are kingdom people that I'm talking to, yes?
Yes,
If I could say to you, the one thing I would encourage you to do is to center your whole life around following that voice. When I tell you, it has taken me literally all over the world into things I didn't know I was capable of, pushed me into doors I never would have went into that have led to other doors.
hmm,
It is the reason I am here getting a master's degree for free. Um, just so many things have opened, and all of it can be boiled down to that one thing. I just kept following that voice.
that's awesome.
That's it.
I appreciate that. I hope you get that. And I really hope that you share this and let everyone know, especially your artist friends and your creatives in the creatives in your life who could use a little encouragement. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you the next time right here on Kingdom Conversations with Tahir, the Gospel Engineer.